Lara White, Senior Specialist for Labor Mobility and Human Development, Regional Office of the Asia Pacific from IOM. Ms. Hita Cannon, Vice President, Capacity Building, Elevate. And we have Mr. Mohammad A. Momen, Director from the BZMA, Pride Group, and also the Professor of the Institute of Business Administration from the University of Dhaka. Maybe he's joining a bit late. And we have Mr. Mohammad Jahidullah, Head of the Sustainability DBL Group. And we have Ms. Nazma Akhtar, Founder and Executive Director of Awaz Foundation. Welcome on board, everyone. Yeah. Before we move on to the discussion, I would like to shed some light on how IOM is responding to this current crisis. Migrant workers are an increasingly important part of the global garment industry. And particularly in Bangladesh, we have 4.1 million workers, and majority of them are internal migrants. However, it's one of the topics which has been less explored. With rising unemployment, they might be impacted along with their family members. And then both internal and international migrants are the vulnerable population that might be socioeconomically impacted. Through IOM, we are raising awareness, and to protect the SAMs, we are providing telecounseling facilities and providing, helping like tracing migrants to provide economic support for accelerated economic recovery. Furthermore, IOM is also carrying out a rapid assessment to identify the needs and vulnerabilities of migrant workers, both internal and international. And we are supporting the government of Bangladesh to develop a strategic plan for return and reintegration. And we are preparing a socio-economic response framework for the UN in Bangladesh. So now, without further delay, let me welcome Ms. Lara White to the discussion. So employers and businesses play a vital role in protecting migrant workers and their communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And IOM has developed a guideline to effectively, protect the migrant workers. Now, Lara, could you please talk about the guidance and also talk about how it's going to protect the migrant workers during this COVID-19 crisis? Over to you, Lara.
Thank you, Pravina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I'm okay now, yes? Yeah, okay. Are you going to, I have slides. Will you be showing the slides? Ah, great. And you can just go to full screen. Can you show it on presentation format? Great. Well, thank you very much, Pravina, and I'm very pleased to be on this panel with such a distinguished group of experts in this area of protection of workers, and particularly migrant workers. And certainly, this is a topic that is very much at the forefront of discussions in terms of looking at the both in terms of mitigating the risk of vulnerability to migrant workers and their families, and also looking towards socioeconomic recovery as we prepare globally to recover from this global pandemic. So if you would please go to slide 2. So on slide 2, I just wanted to state that IOM we've produced 2 sets of guidelines to enhance migrant worker protection during this health crisis. So one of them is for employers and the other is for labor recruiters. And the guidelines for employers outline steps which can be taken in the workplace and in dormitories, and also address migrant workers' access to social protection. So the guidelines for recruiters offer guidance on how to enhance protection while recruiting during the crisis. And they also address travel, the importance of actively liaising with migrants and employers, and supporting return and reintegration. And it's important to note that the reason why these pieces of guidance were created is because we understand the very important role that the private sector entities can play in terms of supporting the protection of people in their care, whether it's as an employee or again as a person who is availing of recruitment services. Now, we've translated the documents into several key languages to ensure that the guidelines could then be accessed and used by many employers and recruiters as possible. And so could you go to slide 3? So we produced the guidelines in response to a few different factors. First was that we noticed at the time that there was a real gap in advice. There were broad institutional policy level responses to COVID available, but nobody had provided comprehensive and micro level guidance for the private sector. So we also noticed that migrant workers were facing specific health and livelihood risks. And that includes that their workplaces and dormitories were becoming hotspots for COVID transmission, that migrant communities were facing a heightened risk of infection, and that these vulnerabilities spanned across recruitment and migration stages of the labor migration process. Workers were losing employment and wages with reports of starvation. Some migrants are reluctant to leave their countries of destination, even if it may be best for them due to fear of non-payment of wages by employers. Now, the Migrant Forum in Asia network has initiated a call for justice on this point to address this issue of non-payment of wages and remediation. And they've called for a global remedy framework, which we hope will be implemented. And we're in discussions on how IOM can support this. Additionally, workers were losing their permits and becoming irregular, so falling into an irregular status. And then afraid of possible deportation, which also meant that they were afraid to access health care and posing a public health risk. They had a limited access to social protection and limited livelihood options. And then finally, that migrant workers were facing the prospect of return and reintegration in a context of self-isolation and physical distancing. So in this context, we felt it necessary to produce these guidelines to support business, to enhance migrant worker protection, and to facilitate that transition into post-crisis response, and in this preserve migrant workers' powers as agents of development. With a long-term vision, we foresee that these guidelines will act as a foundation to support supply chain resilience also in times of crisis. I think that everybody here would agree that there was no playbook for what we're experiencing in today's world. This is an unprecedented catastrophe, a global catastrophe, both in terms of mobility and vulnerability of individuals and groups, and also obviously with both economic and health concerns impacted. So next slide, please. Employer guidance to enhance migrant workers during the health crisis. So employers and business play a vital role in protecting migrant workers and their communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many provide essential care and services and goods, and in doing so rely heavily on their migrant workforce. We've designed the guidelines for employers to help employers more effectively respond to the impact of COVID-19 and to enhance protection for migrant workers in their operations and supply chains. So this guidance has been translated into, there's a second version. I should note also that it's a living document. So we are very much open to comments and improvements to enhance this document as the pandemic has progressed, and as the state of play in terms of mobility has also changed. It has been translated into other languages such as Arabic, Chinese, French, Spanish, Polish, and Thai. And the guidelines are global and voluntary. So they're cross-sectoral and not industry specific and are consistent with international standards. Um, Next slide, please. So on this slide, we have an overview of the section headings of the guidelines to give you an idea of the areas that we are covering. So sorry, just looking at this. So if we're looking at, for example, mitigating stress and anxiety, this is something that has come up again through our discussions with migrant workers and representatives about the proliferation of misinformation, unfortunately, on COVID-19 that has exacerbated concerns and stresses to migrant workers. So we are, recommending that employers and recruiters facilitate access to reliable information rather than some of the information that's proliferating on social media, for example, where there is a lot of I guess fabricated information in terms of both what is a safe practice in the context of COVID-19 and also just in terms of other conditions. We're also looking at, for example, we have a guidance on the return of migrant workers. So how can how can employers and recruiters ensure the safe return of migrants? And that would include, of course, whenever possible, the full payment of all outstanding wages and benefits to the workers so that they may return home and with that full complement. And then again, looking at, for example, ensuring ethical recruitment during the crisis. So IOM and international actors and many people on this call have been advocating very strongly for a reform of the recruitment industry in line with international standards. Which would include that no worker, job seeker should pay the costs of recruitment and migration. What we're seeing now, unfortunately, is that when migrant workers have paid those kinds of costs, it can end up leading to a situation of debt and debt bondage, either forcing people to remain in country where they may not be safe or protected, or additionally, also in other cases where workers have borrowed, extensively for the migration process, maybe even released or signed over the deeds of property, and this is having an enormous impact in communities of origin. Okay, next slide, please. So labor recruiters also play an essential role in protecting migrant workers and ensuring essential services, and that they have the staff they need to, that the employers of essential services have the essential staff that they need, particularly during times where they're providing the services that are essential to care or to transportation of goods. I think we're seeing upticks also in, for example, the production of PPE. And so it is clear that migrant workers, more so than ever before, are an essential part of global supply chains, and these global supply chains are critical to the protection of our globe in terms of COVID-19. So recruitment agencies are also on the front lines of helping migrant workers to get home and supporting those who have already returned to access social assistance and to seek alternative livelihood opportunities and navigate the challenges related to reintegration in a time of mandatory quarantine and social distancing. So we had done a survey with the recruiters that we work with in the context of our IRIS program. And so much of the feedback that we received has been integrated into this guidance. So these guidelines provide advice to labor recruiters on how to maintain high standards of ethical recruitment despite the challenges posed by COVID-19. And they suggest practical measures to enhance health-related protections during recruitment, including interviews and transit, arrival, quarantine measures, and onboarding, and also offering some post-crisis considerations in returning to full protection or the new normal, to full production or the new normal as it's now being called. And now I should just note that this guidance for recruitment agencies really should complement the employer resources, and we would encourage employers to read both so that they can have a better sense of, it can serve as a due diligence tool then to ensure that the recruiters who are being hired by employers are also taking this into account. And we've translated this guidance for recruiters into Bahasa Indonesia, into Chinese, French, Khmer, Spanish, and Thai as well. Next slide. So there are several ways that you can interact with the guidelines and with IOM more broadly in support of implementation. One is to, again, provide feedback on the guidance and tell us what your current needs are. So if we'd be happy to have a conversation so that we can better understand and address any kind of concerns that have come through implementation of these guidelines, or if there's nuances that could further improve them. We'd love to have you share your practices with us surrounding migrant worker protection, so we can share best practices with other businesses and brands and produce really perhaps even industry-specific guidance. And then again, we'd be happy to support in terms of the transition to post-crisis response. I think that I'd like to end on a final note that just basically to underscore the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration in this time of crisis. So it's important that we would certainly not advocate that that any one individual or group is responsible for protection of workers, but rather we need to work together and collaboratively, and that also includes government as well. The focus of this discussion or of these guidelines is for private sector actors, but of course there's much ongoing work in relation to our support for our member states at IOM, and I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you, Lara, for setting the guidance. I hope it's going to be useful for the brands and the employers, and also, as you said, to the government. With that note, now I would like to bring in Heather Cannon from the Elephant into the discussion. So, Heather, what is your observation on the impact of COVID-19 that has had on the region, and particularly on the migrant workers in general? Can you also please share some examples of good practices of companies taking care of the workers, protecting their rights from the virus as well as the economic downfall? Over to you, Heather.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So I can share, our point of view is really that companies need a real-time visibility into the supply chain 365 days a year, whether that's a top-down view from management level information or a bottom-up view directly from workers themselves. Because I think we're seeing with COVID, needs are changing so quickly. Lara mentioned a lot of the realities that migrant workers and vulnerable workers are facing. And so without quality needs assessment and real-time communication, companies can't hope to really continue to adapt and meet those needs. So we've seen that companies in particular that have external grievance mechanisms in place in their supply chain, that have that mechanism then for real-time information, are able to respond quickly and adapt to those needs. So for example, specifically in Bangladesh, Elevate is a partner on the Amader Kota helpline together with Fulki, our partner in Bangladesh, and the Khan Group. And we've been running this helpline for 7 years now in Bangladesh. It currently reaches over 600 factories. And we've been monitoring the COVID-related calls and cases that have come in from workers since the crisis began in Bangladesh in March. And we've seen that in the most recent period, about 45% of calls are related to COVID in some way. And when we analyze the 5 kind of categories of COVID calls, so we have leave, termination, wages, hygiene, and then other types of issues. Interestingly, in the early days, down, workers were most concerned about leave and wages and whether they would receive wage payments. And then as workers have been returning to work, their priorities have shifted more to health and hygiene and safety concerns about, the keeping safe at work when they return to work. So we've been able to share that, that information with the companies that we partner with on that initiative, and they've been able to respond, specifically at their factories, and share that information with the factories as well. So it's a multi-stakeholder approach that is supported. I would say also this matches some of the data analysis that we've done with our EIQ platform and analytics about really significant increases in wage and working hour violations, up about 189% compared to Q4 in 2019. And I think concerningly, we've seen also a decline in transparency, meaning factories, being transparent about, and presenting true records. So it is, I think as some factories face business continuity and liquidity challenges, it can be even more challenging to get reliable information about the reality. Specifically in Bangladesh as well, our operators for the Amader Kota helpline have been trained by the Better Than Cash Alliance to be able to answer questions from workers about digital payments, because some workers, millions of workers are receiving digital payments now from the government, and some for the first time. So we wanted to also make sure that we're in a position to be able to support workers and refer them as needed to the digital payment providers. We also are doing with a number of companies related to the needs assessment point that I made. We're partnering with some companies, including Big W, in their factories to do specifically COVID-related surveys to understand worker needs, both short-term in terms of workplace safety and physical health and safety, but also start to understand the longer-term implications, because we know, for example, from a mental health standpoint and anxiety and stress, that it's not just about keeping people physically safe. But workers, in particular, vulnerable workers are under extreme stress and anxiety just about the situation. So we want to be able, we're helping companies get better information about those needs so that we can design and support worker well-being and wellness programs that meet those needs. And then lastly, I'll say that from our from Elevate assessments, since the middle of May, we have been including in all Elevate on-site assessments a COVID-19 preparedness observation form. So this focuses on observations about health and safety of workers, and really ensuring that factory management are providing information and proper PPE to workers, so that we can share that information in a structured way to buyers, to again support worker needs here. And then we also have internal guidance for the country about COVID-19, any relevant COVID-19 legislation about health and safety, wages, and time off, so that that our assessments or any on-site work that we do is really aligned to the current needs of supporting workers at this time. And there's more information on our website about that as well. We have a COVID-19 resource center where you can see more information about that.
Thank you so much, Heather, for that comprehensive list of information. That's quite a lot. People can take it from here. And now I would like to bring in Nazma Akhtar of Awaz Foundation into the discussion. Nazma, garment workers have been tremendously affected by the government lockdown, and the garment industry is struggling with the production. Now, as we see, like this lockdown is slowly opening up, and the factories are also reopening. In this situation, like how is the workers group or Awaz Foundation trying to tackle this issue to protect the workers? Over to you.
Thank you.
Hi, are you able to hear her? I cannot hear Nazma.
Uh, I think her microphone is mute. Somebody needs to unmute
Uh,
that.
let us
Nazma, Abha, your
unmute it for
microphone
you.
is.
Miss Nazma, let us unmute it for you. Thank you.
Now is okay? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you. So how we tackle this situation? It's a very difficult question because it's a 4.1 million workers and majority are women workers. So the factory when locked down, that time also the workers has problem. The factory was not locked down properly and they didn't uh, uh, get properly to lock down and be social distance or safe. But when also the payment issue came, that's also came to the lot of problem with the payment also not getting on time. So there is a lot of protest and there's a lot of things. And most of the female workers, they are facing these difficulties. And the main challenges here, what we facing that the most of the shipment, the goods already went to the Europe, America, and they haven't paid the bill. And most of the fashion brand, they cancel the order, suspension the order, and hold the order, and now they are asking for discount. So that is why the workers also not getting full payment. Also month of April, they discount 30% their salary. So we are collecting the information. We are working with the individual factory, some of the brand, we are communicate with them because a lot of workers lost their job, retrenchment, and the pregnant women also, they are jobless, forcefully resign, or a lot of and take their ID card. So this is the scenario which happen. Sometimes we are also communicate with the government, especially the labor ministry, drive fee to these are the area. Also we communicate with the brand, and many cases also pending that not resolved yet that things. And also we send a legal notice to them, and also we are trying to emergency relief or support to the garments workers. So this is the things. The main problem is here what we face, that whole supply chain is not transparent and they are not taking good initiative this corona COVID-19. And we thought that the Rana Plaza or Tajrin, that might be systemic change has done, but there is no systemic change. The power is not distributed properly. So it's an unfair practice. Like supposed to the company should pay, the brand should used to pay the bill like 45 to 80 days. Now the bills are going 100 days to 180 days. And also the discount and holding suspension, this kind of crisis, how we have to tackle this should be tackled by the brand, but they are not doing this kind of things. From the supplier side, they are also not very much taking responsible and helpful for the workers rights and workers life and livelihood. And we don't have the social protection. And you're talking about the migrant workers. We have two kind of garments workers and migration. One is the external migration and one is the internal migration. So majority internal migration garments workers, they have to pay their house rent, they have to buy the food, they need to care about their children, their life. And when they have not getting wages and the benefit, how they have to survive. So this is the issue, is very difficult and very tough time we are facing. And we are not getting so much cooperative from the brand side. And then it's ultimately it goes to the workers, life is threatening. And all brand, we didn't found that any a single brand, they are doing very good thing for workers or the workers protection or something. So we didn't say that this brand is best, that brand is the bad, because all seems like equal. And the people comes to here for cheap labor and low wages. And there is corona, this COVID-19, they are also showing that the workers are modern day slavery. They have no respect, they have no dignity, and there is no workers job and protection. So that there is no job security and vulnerable situation facing our women's workers, who are giving a lot of contribution for the brand profit, supplier profit, different country and our country economics. But now the workers are hunger. So our workers are not only that COVID-19, because there is a factory, if I'm going to say, we are raising also this issue to the brand, that you have to go and visit the factory and monitoring how the safety issues are ensuring in the factory management. But the brand, they said, physically they cannot go and monitoring, they are doing everything in virtually. But the question, the hazardous issue, the so many risks factor in this COVID, and they are working in the factory, not a single brand side. Even the, if I'm going to talk the CEO, they are not visiting, their salary also come from the workers making and cutting. Even the supplier, how many went to inside the factory? Only the workers going, and need to be open the storage, need to be profit for the brand and supplier. But workers have no proper safety and hazard, because there is small, medium and big factory. There is a lot of challenges also. So we didn't found that any brand, any things are doing very goodly. And government also doing there, and also they have also limitation. So the protection, and if we are talking about a tackle, it's very difficult to us, because as long as the people are not taking their own responsibility, responsible, and all the bad impact goes for the workers, that how we have to change. Because this is the COVID, the workers' life is very bad, because our workers are not going to die with the coronavirus. They are going to die with the starving and hunger. And we are also asking for the brand also solution, the payment and bill and lot of issues. But we didn't get any effect, we can get any result, we didn't get anything from anyone. So this is the situation, how we can say that things are we are giving legal notice, and we are supporting them. And the big problem now, the workers have no job security, they are fear, and they are mentally, and depression and mental health, and there are a lot of difficulties they are facing. Also the gender-based violence is a key issue at this moment, at the workplace, at the home, at the community also. Because the workers, when they have no job, no money, and these girls are affected in their family, because 35 to 40% female are single mother, and they have no husband, and they are need to survive with them. So these are the issue, is nobody's thinking, nobody's addressing, only the profit and profit. So we need the social protection, we need unemployment scheme, we need the proper compensation when people lose their job. So there is no justice. So we are trying to do our best, but it's a big issue. One we cannot do only ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, Nazma, thank you so much for the comprehensive, we know that women have been hit hard, and migrant workers are the most vulnerable out of the population. They will be affected. So thank you for your insights. Now I think it's right time to bring in H&M, Mr. Basirun Nabi, into the discussion. As the COVID-19 coronavirus is picking up in the source countries, including Bangladesh, and if you could give us some insights on what H&M is doing or planning to protect the rights of the workers during this pandemic or during this crisis. Over to you, Mr. Navi.
Thank you, Praveena. Can you hear me? Very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you. Thanks to IOM for inviting me and H&M into this interesting discussion. And I'm really looking forward. I think the start has been quite good. I think I want to start with uh, the whole world is not going through a good time. It's rather tough time, right? It's a global situation, this pandemic which we are facing. So during this situation, our first and most priority are the well-being of the workers and securing that the wages, which was mentioned already a few times, that are paid to the workers working in the H&M business partner factories. And here I want to acknowledge and big, thanks to the Bangladesh government. They came forward with this 5,000 crore Bangladesh taka low interest rate, which was very instrumental for payment of the wages for the workers. And also we have tried to secure and ensure that the wages for the workers working in the H&M factories are paid, and bonuses also are paid. So good thing is that although there was an agreement between the government and unions and in the with the association, the industry, PGMA, that the bonuses will be 50% paid and then 50% will be paid later. But in H&M supplier factories, 90% of the, or around 90% of the factories paid 100% bonus before the Eid. So that was a good thing in our supply chain. And now, as Nazma Appa has mentioned, that factories are open, and from middle of April, and we are trying our best to ensure that and support the factories that the health and safety of the workers are ensured at the workplace. Unfortunately, as Nazma Appa mentioned, we are still not going to the factories for physical monitoring. We are doing virtual monitoring, and we have already shared the very good guidelines which are developed by Better Work and BGMEA to ensure the safety, a safe working condition. Here, I want to mention that it's not only for health and safety. For our other inspections also, like quality inspection, we are not going to the factories. So we are doing kind of everything virtually over phone, through meetings, through video calls like these, or I think we believe that our business partners are matured and they are responsible, so they can take responsibilities. They can take responsibilities of the quality of the products and working conditions also, and then they can ensure that. So H&M is in continuous dialogue with our suppliers, our business partners, BGMEA, unions, ILO, and other brands during this situation. And also we have taken delivery of the goods almost almost with no or very negligible cancellation. I'm very proud, and I think this is a very commendable stand by H&M, and thanks to its commitment towards the fair purchasing practices. This is what happening in Bangladesh, and there are also some initiative from our foundation side being a global company, we have H&M Foundation. We have already, from the foundation, has already donated 8.9 million, around 9 million Swedish kroner to care and water aid to cover around 27,000 female textile workers to support them related to health and medicine, livelihood, resilience, and water sanitation and hygiene issues. And we are having discussion with the Save the Children again in Bangladesh regarding the potential disaster relief support focusing the child protection and child education. And there are other mid and long-term activities and plans are also under discussion. Yeah, that's a brief, what H&M is doing as a brand in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bashirun, Mr. Bashirun. And I think it's a very interesting initiative that you have taken. Before moving on to the next speaker, I would also like to request to our participants to fill in the registration form, which is in the chat box. Thank you once again. Now it is much relevant to bring in Mr. Mohammad Jahidullah of the Dulal brothers into the discussion. So, how is your factory management coping with the COVID-19 in terms of ensuring safety, security, and in terms of payment of wages to the workers? Over to you, Mr. Jahidullah.
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon, everyone. So the thing is that, what we have done is that, first and foremost, what we did is that we have made a disinfection chamber at the entrance. We have provided disinfection chambers. 100% of the workers, we need to measure the temperature for them. And then on the floor itself, on the ground floor itself at the entrance, there's a wash provision. Everybody can wash their hand and all. Same washing provision is given also on the production floors also. And besides this, also what is important is that, while measuring the temperature, if we find somebody's are feverish or something, some symptoms or something, we isolate them. And then again, the doctors, we have always, in all the complex, we have full-time doctors. And so these doctors, they go and check and give them advice and all. If required some medicine guidance or something, if anybody to that serious level, to that serious extent, then definitely, refer them to go for the COVID test or something like that. Besides that, it's also that, we have been, as I said about the chambers and other thing, those is there. But, generally, everybody under this present scenario of COVID, people are going through stress. Everybody, even the community have become a problem. If somebody gets identified that, he or she is having COVID, then it might happen that, the people who are in that, the landlord of that particular community house, he may not be allowing that person to stay there. This is a challenge. So people are going through stress. Like for them, every day, every moment when they enter into the factory, what's happening? They feel that, if I get identified that I have temperature or something, then, maybe I'm not in the job or something like this. Type of fear is always on their mind. So even we have found is that, definitely, if I'm also in the same scenario, I need to feel the situation. So what we have observed is that there are workers also to be on the safe side. It may be that they may not having fever or something like that, but they are taking, paracetamol tablet or something, and then they are entering. So what we need to do is that, again, on the production floor, randomly, we need to do some temperature measurement and all. Overall, what I can say is that, and also, of course, after having all these measures, floor disinfection and everything, we did made a video also, and we had that video on screen for the awareness campaign within the factory. When the welfare officers do this awareness, they show it to the workers, and also we put it in our Facebook page so that, it's available to the general public also. Additionally, what we have observed is that, in terms of course, in terms of infection, we had one real case of infection, and we are very thankful to Nazma. Actually, she was the one who personally telephoned me and informed me about that person. And then we look into that particular case. Alhamdulillah, the best part of it is that this person is finally out of COVID, but it took more than 21 days. Generally, people were talking about 14 days, but the reality is not that. If somebody is infected with COVID, it takes about 21 to 24, 25 days like this. It's taking. So this person on June 29th, he has been certified medical test that yes, he is no more into COVID now. So what is this person comes from Rangamati, he was weak and also he has gone back to his hometown, and then once he's fit and all, he'll join it. What we did also, we took the measurement of our, in terms of employment, what is the scenario. In January 2020, we had 21,439 workers in our garments division, and June, we are having 21,538. So only plus 99, we have workers more. So our workers, we have not been in terms of absenteeism or something like that. Even the today's in terms of present, it's 97% of the workers are present. So overall, what we have seen that is for us, things are going in the right direction so far. But yes, every moment is a challenge. Like somebody said very wisely, we are not safe until everyone is safe. So even if one person is unsafe, then all of us are unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zahid. As you said, everyone is unsafe and we need psychosocially, we need to be fit and well-being is important for everyone. So now I would like to bring Professor Mohammed A. Momin, Director from the BGMEA. Textile and apparel industry has provided direct employment to more than 4 million population internal migrants in Bangladesh. And the nationwide holiday that is imposed by the government has put a temporary lockdown on factories and layoff of the staff and all. So now the lockdown is lifted. So workers are coming back to the factory. I mean, how is BGMEA ensuring worker safety and well-being? Over to you, Mr. Momin.
Okay. Unmuted? Okay, yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here and as well as asking me the question. Yeah. When we went into lockdown, that was in 26th of March, and most of the factories were closed until the first week of May. And during this time, what BGMEA did was they sat with various organizations and also created a holistic protocol for how to open the factories. There were a lot of deliberations, and what is practical based on that, a solid protocol was made and standard operating procedure, and that has been circulated amongst the members, and the members they themselves also worked on it, and as a result, we have very successfully installed this standard operating procedure in all the factories that opened in the first week of May. And to ensure that the government agency, which is Department of Factories, we call it DIFE, and the Industrial Police, they have got their own inspection team, and BGMEA itself has created their own inspection team to actually monitor how it's being done in the factories. And also factories on their own, as were spoken by the earlier speaker, made videos to create awareness and also to show best practices amongst members, which were also circulated to show how we are doing social distancing within the factory, and also how we are allowing our workers to get in, and the procedures that are being followed in disinfecting themselves, and all sort of protective equipments and masks that are being used, how they should be disposed of, how they should be worn, etc. As detailed, standard operating procedure for all of these were already installed. Then this is being very well practiced, I would say, because I heard Ms. Nazma speak in other forums where she herself mentioned the total number of cases in the entire industry is under 300. Also, the same thing was said by the Department of Industries representative in another forum. So I'm just quoting them. And if you look at, so compared to the entire industry, this is very insignificant. This is number one. Number two, we have from BGMEA opened up 2 facilities for tests. These are state-of-the-art facilities, and it takes a lot of time to actually. We are not experts in this, so we have to engage experts, and we actually partnered with Bangladesh Diabetic Association, which is one of a very prestigious organization, for having to support us in testing, and they are actually in charge of the testing facility. And we have created also collection facilities, and we have dedicated hospitals. We were having hospitals, and now we have dedicated hospitals both in Dhaka and in Chittagong, and also isolation centers. So these are all installed practice while we were facing the pandemic, where we were locked down, and we were organizing all of these things, for the betterment of the workers. There were some issues talked about by the second speaker regarding digital payments. You have to understand that only 4% of the factories were were paying digitally when the COVID started. So when the government declared its incentive package, not in, I mean, it's support for the industry of 5,000 crore taka, which is actually a loan at a 2%, at a 1% interest, service charge rather. So this was the stipulation of that particular loan was that every worker has to have a digital payment mechanism. We have to disburse the money to individual workers. So within a very short span of time, millions of workers were made to have digital payment accounts through our MFSs. There are mobile financial services, 2 or 3 providers. Each one of them had to also ease out the procedures, and where there were need for voter registration and others, those things were eased out by the central bank to actually facilitate workers to have their digital financing done. So the salaries of the month of March and April and May has been disbursed to this digital payments. And although Ms. Nazma mentioned that 65% salary was paid, these were paid to workers that were staying home. As per law, when you lay off workers having less than a year service, they don't get anything. And also there is stipulation. So as per law, they would have probably gotten 54% of the gross salary, which they got actually 65%. This was done because of the intervention of the government, then the negotiation done between the government and the labor unions and the BGMEA. And so that has gone to the benefit of the workers. This has been entirely transparent, and there was some issue of transparency raised. These are all very transparent. Whatever I'm speaking now can be verified. All of these are very well documented. So this is something that I would rather say the digital payment and the transparency. There is no issue on that. Regarding the buyers, responsibility, I would say that the entire industry has faced tremendous amount of non-cooperation, I would say, from certain buyers, not all of them. Initially, most buyers, including H&M, initially canceled some orders, but they have gone back and they have reinstated some of the orders. Many of the orders have been taken, and some of the buyers were later behaved a little bit responsibly and taken back the orders, but many are still pending. There are a lot of cancellation. There are a lot of orders that has actually been shipped out, has not been paid. There are, you have to understand how the business goes. We start working on a simple purchase order. That's not an enforceable document. So based on that, we import raw materials from other countries or even within the country. And then whenever we accept the documents, the liability is on our shoulder. The buyer refusing to pay, our bank will not wait for us to pay. They will automatically pay and create a loan against us. This is how it is done. So we have huge amount of that kind of debts pending on our shoulder, which has the buyer refused to pay and the liars. And despite that, if you look at the amount of, since I'm representing the industry, if you look at the total amount of workers who have not received payment for any of the previous months is very insignificant. At the same time, the people who have lost job is still very insignificant. So whereas our Western buyers are becoming bankrupt and declaring bankruptcy and having thousands of their employees retrenched, in our country is still very insignificant. We have so far tried our best to behave responsibly and to take care of our workers. So this is where we stand. And I think the first presentation was regarding migrant workers. We are here talking about internal migration, and many of our workers come from distant remote villages and they live in Dhaka. So we also take, you see, in the end, if you listen to what the DBL and the H&M representative has said, that we are almost 2 months in operation. If their dormitories were not safe, they wouldn't be working they wouldn't be in a position to work. And the other thing is, so both the workplace and the dormitories are to some extent in a better position and better maintained, that we have contained this infection to a level that it is not a very significant in the industry compared to the other areas and other. See, and the one last thing, the RMG industry is very used to compliance. So since we are very used to compliance, these new set of rules were only easy for us to roll out. we didn't have much pain to roll it out because we had our compliance officers, welfare officers, the team in place to comply all of this. So with these few words, I'd like to end here. If there is any further question, I have a 4:30 engagement. I will have to quit, if there is no further question for me. Otherwise, I will say goodbye to you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Manan. I think the first round of questions we have completed, but we have a second round of questions. But there, I would like to request all our speakers to be quite precise and very short. I will have a follow-up question. If the other panelists agree, then I would like to put forward the question to elevate. Elevate, and then probably if 4:30 by 4:30 we can close it. But if I would request all the panelists to be very precise and short. And in the meantime, I would also like to request to the participants to open that file and fill in the registration form. And with that, now I would also again, that was a very comprehensive details of like how you're protecting the migrant workers. That was very useful. And then I would like to bring in to elevate, like, the factories are reopening as we discussed, and we heard lots of issues already. So there will be lots of anxiety and we heard. And it's very good to know that in Bangladesh, the insignificant loss of your job or the people are being affected by that, which is excellent news for Bangladesh. And with Heather, I would like you to focus much more on the communication, how you're ensuring safety among the workers to reduce the anxiety, and how are the communication measures taken place, some of the good practices. Within 3 minutes, I request. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So we started actually a series of webinars about this specific topic of workers returning safely to work and wellness at work. And you can see this content, especially the English. Actually, we have the recordings on our website in 8 different languages, including English and Bangla, Tamil, Hindi, Kannada, Portuguese, Italian, Spanish. So it touches on not only the the physical practices, best practices, from WHO guidance in terms of social distancing and access control, some of which the other panelists have talked a little bit about, but it also goes into detail about worker mental health and particularly the importance of proactive communication with workers throughout this process, because there's so many changes happening. So it really comes down to kind of 4 key areas. One is letting workers know environment and what the factory has done to actually protect worker safety. Secondly, giving workers regular updates. So when things are changing about COVID in the workplace. And then third, giving workers proper training on the personal protective equipment and hygiene. And then lastly, making sure that workers understand the internal communication and external communication channels that they have available to them to support them in this process. So, some factories do have strong internal channels, but some don't. And it's good for workers to also be aware of external resources that are available to them. So that's, recommend to check that out on our website. Like I said, it's in multiple languages. And then I also want to mention that we are partnering. We have funding from the UK government to partner on an app specifically for migrant workers going overseas. I know a lot of migrants, are working within Bangladesh, but for those going overseas, those that are, as workers are more economically desperate, they may be more willing to take jobs and get into situations that are even more precarious. So this app that we're developing is really to support safe migration and ethical recruitment. We're partnering with Diginex, so the company that does financial services company that develops technology solutions, including with blockchain for verifying, for example, worker contracts, as well as partnering with Winrock and IOM on this program. Right now, we're in a consultation phase for it with the government of Bangladesh and with other local stakeholders to ensure that the development of the platform integrates, the needs of all the different stakeholders and is able to support workers that, again, those workers that are going overseas for work.
Thank you so much, Heather. Now I would like to ask the question to Professor Menon. Before going to the question, I would like to request to the participants, if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat box. So, to Professor, I would like to ask, as a follow-up question, what can BGMA or what can BGMA take to protect the industry as a whole? What measures can you take to protect the industry as a whole?
First of all, my name is Momen. You know, there are a lot of women here. Make the W into an M. That's me. You know,
I say Momen. Did I pronounce it properly?
That's okay. That's okay. Just kidding. Actually, when you say protecting the industry, are we only talking about protecting the workers? Or if you're talking about protecting the industry, it is a whole lot. It encompasses many more things. You know,
yes.
There has to be a continued work for the industry to protect the working, to protect the workers, protect the environment. So BGM is an association of the manufacturers. It has got limited ability to do. What it does is actually it is trying to negotiate with various stakeholders and how they can actually help the industry to continue. There are longer, short-term, and medium-term policies being taken. I mean, to facilitate the continuance of the work. But at this present time, you know, when the world is going through this challenge, so naturally there has been shrinkage of orders. There has been cancellation, not only because of this pandemic. They have lost. The buyers and us, both of us, we lost at least 2 seasons. You know, and you see the process of having orders in future starts at the back. You know, from design to actually having an order, there is a time. So while we were, all locked down, both here and in the West, so those things couldn't take place. There has been, I think, just because of the pandemic, the entire process got so disrupted. It's going to take some time for it to revive. And I don't expect this happening, before we actually have a clear picture of what is happening in the world. And, so I think we are looking at least another 3-4 months for orders to start, coming back to its normal. During this time, there has to be government and buyers and foreign and international agencies support for the livelihood to continue for the workers, so that it can, when works resume, the factories can rebound, because this was not a financial issue, this was not a technological issue, this was not anything else. It's a medical issue. This is rather a public safety issue. So once that is gone, everything should bounce back to its normal, and that is what we are expecting. That is what we are hoping to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Momen. I think I pronounced it better way, right? No, thank you. Thank you so much for the insights, and inshallah, everyone is working for that moment, everything to bounce back again for the better. Now, I think it's time again to bring in Nazma Akhtar. And due to the COVID-19 crisis, migrant workers, they have lost jobs, as we heard, the vulnerability issues and everything. But what can be done by Ours Foundation and the workers organization to reduce the vulnerability? Nazma Akhtar, to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. The COVID-19, or how can our foundation or other labor organization can support? First of all, we take the information and support to workers, and that's the workers' rights organization we are working. And also we work with the brand, we work with the supplier, government, and trying to be better for the workers and the industry. So, and also we trying to make them better awareness and education about the mental health, about their wage payment, how they have to get. Also, we are counseling with the factory level management also, and make them and educated also them to how make better for their workers protection and life and livelihood, because is productivity also related with the workers good health and good mentality. And also we are negotiation with the as the DBL group, Mr. Zahid mentioned also that we found the COVID case, and we are identify and connect with them and resolve the issues. And also we are also many cases we have problem with the factory issues, which is also we work with the brand and reduce the things. And also we are working with the government and also reduce the problem. And also we are lobby and advocacy on the social protection and unemployment scheme, how we have to ensuring and social things. And also how we are also trying to work with the collaboration, and we are creating awareness locally and globally, because a lot of webinar we talk about the supply chain transparency, fair prices, bill payment, many areas also. And also because if I'm not going to debate with the BGME what he mentioned, and because about the payment on April, because if I'm going to talk about this, that will be a lot of issues, and because he cannot explain that things. And but we are trying to work, and we are trying to campaign on this issue locally and internationally, who are the responsible for what, that kind of issues. And we are working with these issues also. The COVID-19 is not only this, because our many of the members are also working in Mauritius, Jordan, and other country, and there is also the social protection, their wages, their dormitory, their food, many things are addressing its difficulties. So we work together and we support them, and we are working also the abroad and locally different organization, and we are giving legal support and protection. And we are work with the different stakeholder how we can make the issue betterly, because it's not only our issues, it's a global issue, and we need to work globally. And we try to work, but again, this is not we can. This is the factory's more responsibility. It's a brand responsibility, because profit goes to them and loser part goes to the workers. So that is why the profit, how to share distributing, and how to goes to the workers and make healthy and good environment. That kind of area we are working, and we are asking all of them to please work. Don't do anything the workers' wages, workers' bonus, workers' salary increment. If it is reduced, they thought they might be overcome the situation. So that kind of mentality we are trying to change. That is why we are fighting. We are demonstration, mobilization, all kind of activities, dialogue, everything we work for protection of the garments workers and industry, and fighting with the brand, fighting with the supplier. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nazma Akhtar. And I think that brings, you rightly pointed out, like, it's a global issue and it needs to be dealt globally, like, not individuals. I mean, it's not one individual can solve each issue. And that's my question to H&M. Like, H&M, they have confirmed that all the products without discount, they're taking on the orders. And now this is a global crisis, as you rightly pointed out, the individual company. But then the H&M, can it play a crucial role to bring all the brands in one platform and to act more collectively to address this issue? To Mr. Basirul Nabi again, I would like you to request, I would like to request to respond in at least 3 minutes, please. Yeah.
Thank you for this very interesting question, and it's also a very crucial question. I think, first of all, we believe that we need to do walk the talk. That's by keeping our commitment. So, as you said, we didn't put any discount, and company, we have even taken all the produced goods during the, when the lockdown. If the factory could ship, we were ready to take all that. Why we did that? You can ask, why do you do that? But we did that because we thought that's connected to releasing the payment, to the workers. And that's why maybe it's also one of the reasons could be contributing to that. Although the industry agreed with the union to pay 50% of the bonus, but H&M suppliers could pay 90% of the H&M supplier could pay 100% bonus. You know, fair purchasing practices is one of the H&M strong area, and sustainability is embedded in our purchasing practices. During the global pandemic situation, sorry for my pronunciation, all the brands are going through tough time. H&M is also going through tough time. We have to take many tough decisions, because at one point almost all our stores were open, were closed. And I mean, different brands have different struggles. Their business model is different. The nature of business is different. Their customer group is different. Some are relying more on stores like H&M. Some are relying on online. Some are wholesaler, and then there are the big departmental stores also. So I mean, there is conflict also in the business model and also in the interest, but we strongly believe that we need to work together. I mean, during this time even more. So what we have been always a believer that collaboration is key, and not only during this situation but even before the pandemic. So what we are, there are global initiative which H&M are partnered. I want to mention a few initiatives, like maybe you are aware of Action, Collaboration and Transformation. In brief, ACT is a collaboration of, it's a platform of 22 brands with global unions, with the commitment that ultimately we want to see an industry level living wage. And how that will be negotiated? That will be negotiated between workers and the employers. But what would be from the brand side? But these 22 brands are committing that all of them will have fair purchasing practices, and they will be ring-fencing the wages component. There will be no negotiation on the wages part when they're negotiating the price. But that initiative, we need to, I mean, we want that more brands join, and then we can become more stronger into that. There is one recent initiative which is again led by ITUC and ILO, which is Call to Action, is trying to address the COVID situation, and also International Employers Organization is also part of that. These initiatives commit to take action to protect garment workers' income, health, employment, and support employees to survive during the COVID situation and crisis, and to work together to establish a sustainable system of social protection. So far, 11 brands has signed this. We want more brands, to sign this initiative. Apart from these two initiatives, we are also involved in other local initiatives. We are in discussion. EU, I think all of you are aware that EU wants to do something. We are talking to EU for the income support of the workers, and also individually, H&M is also talking to different financial institutions, banks, how we can support our suppliers. If we can start with our suppliers, we'll definitely, take it to the other brands. So we are always open to collaboration with all the actors, and this is very important even in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Basirur Navi from H&M. And I think before moving on to our the last panelist, the last question to our panelist, Mr. Mohammad Jahidullah, since Professor Momen has to leave a bit early, there are two questions for him. With your permission, can I ask him those two questions? Yeah, there are two questions to Mr. Momen. Does BGMEA see any workers' retrenchment in coming months, as some news was circulated due to order crisis? There would be some sort of retrenchment. How authentic this information is? And the other question is, how can we know more about BGMEA supported COVID test, hospital and isolation facilities?
Okay, to answer the first one, uh, see where the whole world is expecting around 30 to 60% order shrinkage. And as we have already lost almost 2-3 months work of, I mean, 2-3 months of work, and there has been a lot of cancellation, and we are already sitting up with pile of stocks that are cancelled. So naturally, we don't expect the business to be as usual. So if the business was as usual, then 100% of the factories would be running at 100% capacity. So with this reduction, you can only, predict that there will be some, job losses, and this has been very normal. We have seen in the West, where our buyers are located, they have lost their jobs. Many people, organization had to shrink their employees. So naturally, there will be much less buying compared to it. And moreover, as the earlier speaker was mentioning, the many businesses had brick and mortar shops which were closed, and which were, now they had to they had to depend on online business. And so this naturally, there is going to be a shrinkage in order, and if there is a shrinkage in order, there will be a shrinkage or loss of order over here, and the loss of jobs. That is the only thing that is possible. But so far we haven't seen much job losses. What has happened is still not so significant, in my opinion. To answer the next question, these are we have opened up this unit which is in what is that called? Which is in support with the Bardem, and the location of the factory of the hospital is in Gazipur area. They are operating even from various factories are testing, sending their people to test. All information is readily available with BGMA, whatever you want to know. And today there is a new hospital that has been opened in Chittagong, which is entirely for BGMA staff, employees, and also owners, and with an isolation facility and a full-fledged hospital. These, whatever you want to know about it, you're more than welcome to come to talk to BGMA officials. They will be more than happy to provide you that whatever information you need to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Momen, and thank you so much for being with us. With that, I would like to put my last question to Mr. Mohammad Jahidullah of the DVL Group. It's last but not the least. So DVL Group is committed in ensuring protection of both the internal as well as the international migrants and in their entire supply chain. So do you see the current scenario as an opportunity for the employers to showcase how business can protect the workers? To you, Mr. Jahidullah.
Yes, thank you. So actually the reality is that, if you want to see in this country context or across, everybody is not H&M and everyone is not all factories. So these are very limited handful, So what we need to do is actually concern about what's not happening, whether it's the internal migration or whether it's the external migration. The most important thing is that in our country, we do not have social security for the workers. This is something we should not forget and we should do. This is the time, I'll say this is an opportunity. COVID has exposed us. You see people, down the line working in this industry, workers, women workers, male workers for 10 years, 15 years. They had come out of poverty. They were living a very good lifestyle. I mean, an improved lifestyle compared to what it was. Education level in their family had gone up. Lifestyle was changing. But now where they are, they're going back to zero, not even back to zero, minus, perhaps they're going into. So through this COVID opportunity, we should look into how, we address the issue of social security. Believe me, every 10 years or 12 years, if you go on to see the past, there will be financial crisis, there will be economic recession, or there will be something regard to the oil or something, like we are having now in 2020. There was a problem in 2008 financial crisis. In 1998, the price of oil was just $8 a barrel. So, every 10 or 12 years, these things will happen. We are in 2020, but something may happen in 2022. What is the action we are going to take it? So development institutions, development organizations, they should work seriously something on this. I still remember I was in one of the program of the Responsible Business and Human Rights, where one of the person from IOM, she commented about 3 C's, that there should be commitment, there should be communication and there should be collaboration. So this is something what we should all do, that how, the workers coming back into the industry, it should not happen that what has happened this thing again, So we should work on social security. Additional is that since, COVID has forced what has not could, we were very slow in going for the digital banking for the workers. It was on a very slow stage, but overnight it has happened. So now again, it's an opportunity where brands can prove also, where development institutions can prove how they can send some money to the workers through the digital transaction. Because people doubt that maybe the employees, they are taking this money, but now it's all about transparency. So through these digital accounts, there is the opportunity for brands and for development institutions, organizations where they can remit some money to the workers, across not only Bangladesh, it could be across the world where garment industry, because garments industry, workers' life across the world, it's the same thing, irrespective of countries, So this is what my suggestion. It's not about the good practice, something good we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We had a very vibrant discussions and opinions that came, and then that's directed towards the different initiatives that are being taken place to protect the migrant workers and the workers in general. So with that, that's the end of our panel discussion. Is there any questions from the participants? You are free to ask some questions last minute. We can take 1 or 2 questions if there's any. Otherwise, I don't see any questions in the chat box, but if they have privately send some questions. That I can see.
Privately, one question was asked to me, and I have answered privately also. Thank you, and for having me.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. I think if there are no questions, we would like to thank you very much for your time, and each one of your contribution was really, really good, and it was enriching for us to take it forward from here on how to protect the migrant workers in general, and also the entire business. And as you mentioned rightly, it's the global issue, and it has to be tackled globally in collaboration and partnership. And I'm so thankful to everyone, and you still remember which IOM has mentioned about the commitment, collaboration, so which was so good to my ears to hear that. And so with that, I would like to thank you everyone, including our participants who have been patiently listening to us and there are lots of takeaways from here to protect the workers in general. And at the end, we will also be sharing the recording with a follow-up email, and probably we'll be asking for inputs from you, how did the the whole webinar went out, and what was your feedback probably. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll get in touch maybe again. Thank you so much. Okay. No, before that, one more announcement. One more announcement. We have a post-evaluation form which we'll be sharing with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pravina. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.